Here's a short ghost story which I may have read before, but I just cannot remember. Simon staggered home. It had been another hard drinking evening. He was so drunk that he struggled to get the key in the front door. The wind whipped around him, sobering up in an instant. He fell into bed with a raging headache and a broken heart. He wasn't ashamed to admit he was a lonely man, and the drink was his only solace and his only companion. He lived alone for too long and he hated it. He staggered into bed, scattering empty beer cans out of his way. He lay in the dark, waiting for sleep to come. He had to admit he was a mess and he couldn't see a way out. After 10 minutes of tossing and turning, it dawned on him that he was hungry, even though it was 1 a.m. He went into the kitchen and slammed a pie into the oven and shut the door. It wasn't exactly fine dining, but in the state he was in, he would have eaten anything. He lay back in the bed and promised himself that he wouldn't fall asleep, and he did exactly that, fell asleep. After a few hours, the pie bubbled and burned, and thick black smoke filled the kitchen and spread through the flat like depression. Simon was oblivious, dead to the world as he could be. The white paint on the windowsill bubbled, and the glass grew hotter and hotter. It was ready to explode. Slowly, the thick, deathly black smoke curled like an evil fat snake towards the bedroom where Simon lay snoring in his drenched stupor. The kitchen was like a pressure cooker waiting to go off. It was at this moment that a figure stepped out of the shadows. He was dressed in a light green army uniform with a matching hat that accentuated his sharp, handsome features. He walked towards the bedroom and through the badly painted door. He stood there for a moment as Simon slept oblivious, and then he sat on the edge of the bed, moving the blankets as he did so. Simon slowly came to consciousness like a man walking from a coma. His keys scanned the deathly dark room. His head was still fuzzy with the alcohol, and it took a while for his eyes to adjust to the dark. When they did so, he looked and looked again at the figure which was slowly coming into view at the bottom of his bed. He blinked again to make sure that he was still asleep, but the soldier was still there. He should have been scared, very scared, but the alcohol had numbed his senses and given him courage. He looked at the man again, and it became even clearer. Simon could make out his medals and the lacquered shine of his shoes. "Who are you?" Simon asked, even though he knew it was a silly question. The figure smiled and faded like smoke, slowly, ever so slowly. When he had fully disappeared, Simon sat back in bed in shock, and it was then that the smell of the billowing smoke from the kitchen finally awoke his nostrils and his brain to the sense of urgency and danger. He grabbed the handle of the kitchen door, and to his shock, it was hot to the touch. This was a wake up call. He slowly opened the kitchen door, and a furnace like burst of heat sent him backwards. He rushed to the bathroom and wet a towel with cold water and threw it over himself like a shawl. He edged into the kitchen, fearful of the heat. He managed to turn off the cooker and could see that the pie was as black and charred as an anvil. The windows were boiling to the touch, and he was shocked at how close he had come to burning the place down and himself with it. The window pane was peeling and bubbling like a something. Simon opened the windows carefully, and the smell poured into the night like ink. After a few seconds in the kitchen, Simon was coughing and spluttering, and he had to get out of there. He sat on the edge of the bed slowly, drinking the ice-cool water through his parched, smoke-damaged lips. It was then that the enormity of what had happened struck him. He had been so close to death, he wondered how the ghostly figure come to warn him like an angel in the night. He knew he hadn't imagined it, and he had an open mind, but not too open. He could still see the medals and the shoes like glass in his mind's eye. It certainly hadn't been a dream. Simon cleared up the cans and watched for the morning to come. As the room was slowly lit with light and the dawn chorus filled his ears, he tipped the pie into the bin and drank more water. Everything was going back to normal. He opened the fridge and emptied the remaining cans of beer down the sink. He never did see the airman again, and he never drank another drop of alcohol. This is a true story which happened to me when I was drinking.